Alright trainers, TaeganAdventures here. So, tomorrow Groudon takes its leave from Tier 5 raids in Pokémon Go. He's going back to his own Terra cave, and replacing it is Mewtwo, all the way from the faraway region of Kanto, cloned on Cinnabar Island, gaining a new suit of armor. Mewtwo is now in its armored form. As you can see, it probably has the same stats as regular Mewtwo, but it hasn't been explicitly confirmed by Niantic or Pokémon Go. Armored Mewtwo does seem to have the same stats as Mewtwo, and many sources, including GoHub as well as GamePress, expect that Armored Mewtwo will have the same stats as Mewtwo. Don't quote me on that. There are some sources that possibly point to Armored Mewtwo having the same stats as regular Mewtwo, but there's some that say otherwise, like the encounter CP in the trailer being different from a regular raid Mewtwo, but I digress. Now, as you can see, Armored Mewtwo has a bevy of moves here, so it has lots of new coverage moves, like Solar Beam, like Iron Tail, like Poison Jab, like Foul Play, like Break. It has so much coverage that it can potentially benefit from here. Solar Beam, of course, checks Mega Gyarados once that enters the meta in Gen 6. Focus Blast and Break, of course, check the dark types like Tyranitar, like Mega Gyarados, or Bisharp when that comes in Gen 5. Shadow Ball covers for the ghost types like Giratina, Gengar, like Drifblim, like Chandelure in Gen 5, Slash in Gen 6. Flamethrower covers for the bug types like Scissor, like Genesect in Gen 5. Ferrothorn in Gen 5. It's not technically a bug type, but Steel does resist Psychics, so yeah, it's a pretty important coverage move right there. Ice Beam covers for the Dragon, Flying, and Ground types, although it's not really relevant. Mewtwo can be a pretty impressive generalist, as we have seen with regular Mewtwo. I think Armored Mewtwo would be the same, especially if it has the same stats as regular Mewtwo. Armored Mewtwo would be a pretty valuable coverage option, and a pretty good generalist as well, especially that it has a really huge move pool. I think Armored Mewtwo would do really well against the PvP as well as Gym and Raid meta. So without further ado, let's dive into the actual meat of the video, how to take on a Mewtwo in Tier 5 raids. Armored Mewtwo is most likely going to be a pure Psychic type, just like regular Mewtwo, so honestly, whatever counters you've used on a Mewtwo before is still usable on Armored Mewtwo. So things like your Dark, Ghost, and Bug types would do super effective damage against a Mewtwo. Now, of course, in the Dark type department, you really only see one guy being used, that is Tyranitar. It's got the bulk, the offenses. I believe I've said this a lot of times in the channel. Tyranitar is the premier Dark type Pokemon, and it's your go-to for any Psychic type, especially Mewtwo. Mewtwo is a pretty powerful Pokemon, so you would want something more tanky and bulky to soak up that damage. Tyranitar fits that bill perfectly. Now, of course, we have Weavile here, another really offensive Dark type, but you want to use this with caution, especially when Mewtwo does get a lot of coverage moves here, like Break, fighting type moves, fire type moves, which can hit Weavile super effective. And considering that Weavile is kind of a glass cannon, in fact it's pretty glassy, you wouldn't want to be sending in Weaviles on a Focus Blast, Break, or Flamethrower Armored Mewtwo. Houndoom, also another pretty cool pick here. It's unfortunately a glass cannon just like Weavile, and is also pretty situational, so I highly recommend you go with Tyranitar over Houndoom and Weavile. Alolan Muck is also a pretty good choice, especially considering its tankiness, its bulkiness, but its DPS is pretty lackluster. Bite in Dark Pulse only does 16 DPS compared to Tyranitar's Bite Crunch, which is 20.72 DPS, so Alolan Muck is pretty much a run-of-the-mill pick for a Dark type. In terms of the Ghost types, we have the OG Ghost Gengar coming out on top again with Shadow Claw, Shadow Ball, or Lick Shadow Ball, two of the highest damage dealing movesets, so definitely Gengar you want to use on a Armored Mewtwo, especially considering its 261 base attack. But you want to use Gengar with caution against a Shadow Ball Mewtwo because it would take super effective from Shadow Ball. This applies to all Ghost types. All Ghost types will take super effective from Shadow Ball, so you want to send in those Ghost types in with caution. For Gengar specifically, Gengar is also weak to Psychic type moves, which means Psycho Cut, Confusion, and Psychic will do super effective on Gengar, so you want to use it with caution. It wouldn't have very good TDO, but honestly, the DPS makes up for that. Now, if you want more more bulk in your ghost types, definitely try out Giratina Origin. It has a huge HP stat as well as a pretty serviceable attack stat if you don't have your Gengar, or if you don't have a decently powered up Gengar with double ghost type moves. Giratina Origin with Shadow Claw, Shadow Ball is definitely a very good replacement, but as I just said with Gengar, it takes super effective from Shadow Ball, so you want to use it with caution as well. Although not a ghost type, Mewtwo, just the OG non-armored Mewtwo with Shadow Ball would be a really good option for an armored Mewtwo here. Of course, armored Mewtwo being a psychic type will take super effective from Shadow Ball, so definitely a Mewtwo with the EX exclusive Shadow Ball would be a very good choice. It's pretty tanky, and has a huge attack stat of base 300, so I believe it would make a very good pick. Despite Confusion and Psycho Cut being resisted by Armored Mewtwo, Shadow Ball would still make up for the DPS there. Now in terms of the bug types, Pinsir and Scizor are your only two bug types. Pinsir with Bug Bite and X Scissor, as well as Scizor with Fury Cutter and X Scissor would be your two best choices in terms of your bug types. Although Scizor does have some pretty cool resistances, it also takes super effective from Flamethrower, so use your bug types with caution there. Now I just want to give some honorable mentions to the following Pokemon because they are very situational. Baynet with Shadow Claw, Shadow Ball, a glass cannon just like Gengar, but it's only here because of its really good DPS. Sharpedo is also here for the same reason, in the fact that it is a glass cannon. It only has 83 base defense and takes super effective from fighting type moves, grass type moves, and electric type moves, all of which Armored Mewtwo actually has, so definitely Sharpedo wouldn't be your top priority, although you can still use it for the good DPS, just be really careful with it. On the same vein, Gyarados with Bite and Crunch is on the honorable mentions list, not only because Bite and Crunch does not benefit from stab for a Gyarados, but Gyarados does take super effective from Thunderbolt, so if you want to use a Gyarados, just do not use it on an Armored Mewtwo with Thunderbolt. Similarly, Honchkrow is on this list because it takes super effective from Thunderbolt, super effective from Ice Beam, both of which take out Honchkrow and reduce it to dust. It's a pretty glass cannon, but Snarling Dark Pulse should work pretty well on a Honchkrow. Although I don't recommend using a Honchkrow, but you can still use it. I would prefer using a Tyranitar. It's basically up to you if you want to use a Honchkrow or any of the honorable mention Pokemon. It's pretty optional on your team when countering a Mewtwo, but anyway, I digress. Now if you're looking for the 100% CPs, it is likely going to have the exact same 100% CPs as a regular Mewtwo, which is 2387 in non-weather boosted conditions and 2984 in weather boosted conditions, which is in windy weather. These CPs might change depending on how the stats are affected when Armored Mewtwo launches, but for now, if we assume that the stats do not change between regular Mewtwo and Armored Mewtwo, we can safely assume that the CPs do not change as well, including the 100% CP. I would recommend about 3 to 4 high level players above level 35 to take on a Mewtwo. For the low level players, I think about 6 players should be sufficient. If you don't have enough firepower on your team, or if you just don't have the super effective Mons, definitely bring some extra people to try and help out and supply the required firepower. Now in terms of its offenses, definitely Mewtwo is top tier for its coverage moves. Like we've seen with regular Mewtwo when it came into tier 5 raids for the first time in September last year. Mewtwo has a really wide move pool, especially with Ice Beam, Flamethrower, and Thunderbolt, 3 of the more recent additions to its move pool. Already Mewtwo can take on a lot of things in a variety of different matchups, especially coming off a base 300 attack stat. It's going to do huge damage on whatever that it touches. Adding on the super effective damage multiplier, Mewtwo is certainly going to do a lot of coverage, a lot of really good damage, especially if you use it right. It's pretty versatile, I must say. Especially since Armored Mewtwo got an expanded move pool from regular Mewtwo, I can safely say that Armored Mewtwo will have a much wider utility than normal Mewtwo. Solar Beam, Foul Play, Iron Tail, Poison Jab, really exciting moves to use in PvP, especially in the Master League. I'm personally very excited to see how well it does in the Master League. We do not have the stats at the moment because it is still a new form. It hasn't been released yet, so it's pretty much a mystery on how exactly it will perform, but judging by the amount of coverage and the expanded move pool it gets, Armored Mewtwo will certainly be a force to be reckoned with. It's pretty much a really good Pokemon to put in your arsenal, definitely providing some very good coverage. That's pretty much all I have to say about Armored Mewtwo for today. Hopefully you've learned something from this video, and hopefully you now know how to adequately beat an Armored Mewtwo in Tier 5 raids in Pokemon Go. So until more information drops on Armored Mewtwo, I will be updating you about the stats, the performance, and the as well as the hype around Armored Mewtwo. It's a new form, a new Pokemon. It's been highly anticipated ever since it was leaked, kind of, a few months back. So yeah, I'm going to be signing off real quick. So this has been TaeganAdventures, signing off right now. Peace out.